My name is Emily Thompson, 32 years old, and I never imagined being banned from my own nephew's welcome party. When my mother blocked the doorway and hissed that I shouldn't be there, I felt that familiar childhood rejection all over again. But then, my 15-year-old daughter Sophia took my hand, smiled sweetly, and uttered the words that changed everything. "I know we shouldn't be here, Grandma. That's why I brought Dad's lawyer, too." The silence that followed was deafening. Before I continue my story, leave a comment telling me where you're watching from and subscribe if family drama is your thing. Growing up in suburban Boston, our white colonial house with its perfectly manicured lawn was the epitome of upper middle class success. My father, Michael Thompson, built a thriving insurance business, while my mother, Patricia, focused on maintaining our social status in the community. From my earliest memories, our household operated under strict rules, focused on appearances above all else. The stark difference in how my parents treated me versus my younger brother David was impossible to ignore, even as a child. While I was constantly reminded to be polite, learn domestic skills, and never cause embarrassment, David was encouraged to achieve, take risks, and pursue ambitious goals. The unfair dynamic established our family roles early. I was the disappointment. He was the golden child. Family gatherings always highlighted this disparity. Relatives would fawn over David's latest accomplishments while I sat quietly in the corner feeling like an afterthought. My mother never missed an opportunity to critique my appearance, my grades, despite being mostly A's, or my choice of friends. "Emily, couldn't you have done something with your hair before the Millers arrived? Or why can't you be more outgoing like your brother?" became such common refrains. I could predict them before the words left her lips. Dad was less overtly critical, but emotionally distant. The rare moments he showed genuine pride were reserved exclusively for David. I still remember the crushing disappointment of my 12th birthday, when my parents forgot to plan anything until the last minute, resulting in a hastily purchased cake and no guests. Just 3 months later, David's 10th birthday featured a professionally planned backyard carnival with 20 classmates in attendance. When I mentioned the discrepancy, Mother simply said, "David is more sociable. He needs these things more than you do." Despite their indifference, I threw myself into academics and extracurriculars, desperately hoping to earn the approval they lavished so freely on my brother. I joined debate team, maintained a 4.0 GPA, and served in student government. Each achievement was met with the same lukewarm response. "That's nice, dear," without the enthusiasm that greeted David's every soccer trophy or science fair ribbon. The physical manifestation of their favoritism was displayed throughout our home. The living room walls showcased David's sports trophies and academic certificates in custom frames, while my debate medals and writing awards were tucked away in a desk drawer deemed not important enough for public display. When relatives visited, Mother would give tours highlighting David's accomplishments while mine went unmentioned. My teenage years only widened the growing distance between us. While I found refuge in literature and writing, developing passions my parents dismissed as impractical, I also built close friendships with Olivia and Mia, who provided the emotional support my family withheld. Mother increasingly controlled my appearance and social circle, criticizing my clothes as too casual, or my friends as not from the right families. The pinnacle of this control came during senior year, when she forbade me from attending prom with Ryan, a kind, intelligent boy who happened to live in the apartment complex across town rather than our affluent neighborhood. What would the neighbors think? She worried aloud, as if his zip code might somehow be contagious. Meanwhile, David dated freely with minimal supervision or rules, bringing home girlfriends from various backgrounds without comment. I maintained peace for family harmony, despite the growing resentment, becoming expert at swallowing hurt feelings and pretending everything was fine. When college application season arrived, my focus wasn't just on finding a good school, but on escaping the suffocating environment of home. Every application represented potential freedom from constant comparison and criticism. When I earned a substantial scholarship to the State University for English Literature, my parents' disappointment was palpable. State school. But David will be applying to Harvard next year. Mother lamented as if my accomplishment had somehow diminished his future prospects. They reluctantly attended my orientation. Mother spending most of the day pointing out how much nicer the private universities in Boston were compared to my campus. College life was transformative. Away from my family's shadow, I built confidence and discovered my own voice. The freedom to choose my own schedule, friends, and activities without criticism allowed my authentic self to emerge. I joined the literary magazine, took creative writing classes, and for the first time felt truly seen for who I was rather than who I wasn't. During sophomore year, I met Alex in creative writing class. Handsome, charismatic, and brilliantly articulate, he captivated me from our first workshop together. His ambitious plans for law school and eventual political career made him seem mature beyond our peers. When he focused his attention on me, I was flattered and quickly fell for his charm and intelligence. Our relationship progressed rapidly. Within 6 months, we moved into an off-campus apartment together, creating what I believed was the foundation for our future. My parents initially disapproved, with Mother calling it living in sin, but their attitude softened considerably when they learned about Alex's family wealth and connections. Suddenly, my relationship choices were acceptable because Alex came from the right kind of background. Looking back, I should have recognized the warning signs. Alex's charm gradually gave way to controlling behavior that echoed my family dynamics in disturbing ways. He critiqued my clothing choices, suggesting outfits that would better complement him at social functions. He discouraged certain friendships, claiming they distracted me from supporting his goals. Like a slow boiling pot, the temperature rose so gradually I didn't notice I was burning until it was too late. As Alex focused intensely on LSAT preparation and law school applications, I found myself increasingly isolated. Friends I had neglected at his suggestion stopped calling. My own academic interest took a back seat to typing his application essays and quizzing him with flashcards. I was playing a supporting role in his life story rather than living my own. 3 months before graduation, my world imploded with 2 pink lines on a pregnancy test. When I told Alex, his response was immediate and clear. "You need to take care of this. I'm starting Harvard Law in the fall, and there's no room for a baby in that plan." No discussion, no questions about my feelings or wishes. Just an assumption that I would terminate the pregnancy to avoid inconveniencing his carefully plotted future. After days of soul-searching and many tears, I made my decision. This unexpected pregnancy wasn't ideal timing, but I wanted this baby. When I told Alex my choice, his ultimatum came swiftly over coffee at our usual campus cafe. "It's me or the baby, Emily. You can't have both." I watched him walk away, his back straight and determined, never once looking back as he left the cafe and my life forever. The tearful phone call to my parents that evening was met with cold silence, followed by my mother's first response. "How could you embarrass us like this?" Not concern for my emotional state. Not questions about my plans or needs, just worry about how my pregnancy would reflect on them socially. David called the next day to inform me I was being irresponsible and attention-seeking, as if I had planned this situation to steal focus from his recent acceptance to law school. My father refused to speak to me directly for months afterward, communicating only through my mother when absolutely necessary. I completed my final semester while battling morning sickness, depression, and the logistical challenges of preparing for single motherhood. My graduation ceremony, which should have been a celebration of academic achievement against all odds, was attended by my parents with visible discomfort and minimal conversation, as if my pregnant body was an embarrassment they were forced to publicly acknowledge. Sophia Grace Thompson entered the world on a rainy Tuesday morning in June. Despite the circumstances, the moment they placed her in my arms, I experienced a love so profound it made everything else fade into background noise. Her tiny fingers wrapped around mine as her eyes, surprisingly alert, seemed to study my face. In that moment, I silently promised her that regardless of who else disappointed us in life, I would never let her feel the rejection I had grown up with. My friend Olivia was my only support in the delivery room, holding my hand through 18 hours of labor while my parents visited briefly the following day. Mother refused to hold the baby, claiming a sudden backache prevented it, while Dad stood awkwardly at the foot of the bed, making stilted small talk about the hospital parking situation. They stayed less than 20 minutes. David didn't visit at all, sending a generic card with a teddy bear and no personal message inside. We started our life together in a tiny one-bedroom apartment near campus, furnished with secondhand items from thrift stores and Facebook Marketplace. The crib was a lucky find from a garage sale which I sanded and repainted myself during my final weeks of pregnancy. My dining table was a card table with folding chairs, and most of my clothes came from discount stores as my body adjusted post-pregnancy. Those early months were a blur of exhaustion and emotion. Battling postpartum depression while caring for a newborn alone tested every ounce of my strength and resolve. I took a night job at a local bookstore when Sophia was 3 months old, working while Olivia babysat, then caring for Sophia during the day while surviving on minimal sleep. Some days simply showering felt like an insurmountable accomplishment. My parents visited occasionally, each visit filled with barely veiled criticism. Mother would inspect the apartment with disapproving glances, making comments about dust on bookshelves or suggesting better ways to organize the limited space. When Sophia was 3 months old, Mother casually mentioned that adoption is still an option, as if my daughter were a temporary problem rather than the center of my world. After that comment, I limited their visits to once a month. The unexpected blessing during this challenging time came from joining a single mother's support group at the community center. There, I found women who understood my struggles without judgment, who shared childcare tips, hand-me-down baby clothes, and the invaluable gift of validation. These women became the supportive family my biological one failed to be. Through determination and a bit of luck, I landed an editorial assistant position at a small publishing company when Sophia turned 1. The modest but steady income allowed us to move to a slightly better apartment in a safer neighborhood, with a tiny patch of grass Sophia could eventually play on. I became an expert budget manager, stretching every dollar to its limit, often sacrificing my own needs to ensure Sophia had everything she required. The affordable daycare run by retired teacher Mrs. Jenkins proved another blessing. Her genuine affection for Sophia and flexible payment arrangements when things were tight made working motherhood possible. I learned to be self-sufficient out of necessity, watching YouTube videos to fix leaky faucets and patch holes in walls rather than paying for repairs we couldn't afford. Sophia's birthday parties weren't elaborate affairs like the ones David and I had growing up, but they were filled with creativity and love. For her 3rd birthday, I transformed our small living room into an underwater kingdom using blue streamers, paperfish, and balloons. Her delight at the homemade mermaid cake I stayed up until 2 in the morning decorating made every exhausted moment worthwhile. As months turned to years, my confidence as a parent grew, despite constant self-doubt. I documented Sophia's milestones in a journal since my family showed little interest in her development. First words, first steps, first day of preschool, all captured in writing alongside photos carefully printed at the library's public computers. I was building our history when others chose not to participate in it. While I created a stable, loving environment for Sophia, my relationship with my family continued to deteriorate. Holiday invitations became less frequent and often arrived last minute as if we were afterthoughts. When we did attend family gatherings, the disparity in treatment was unmistakable. One Christmas, David's children received expensive electronic gifts, while Sophia unwrapped a generic coloring book clearly purchased from a discount store. At David's law school graduation celebration, Sophia and I were seated at the far table with distant relatives, while my brother and his new girlfriend Lauren occupied the center of attention. Mother introduced Sophia to her friends as Emily's daughter rather than my granddaughter, a subtle but painful distinction that separated her from legitimate family membership. My father maintained an awkward distance from Sophia, never developing a true grandfather relationship. He would pat her head briefly in greeting but avoided conversations or activities with her, as if unsure how to interact with this child, who represented his daughter's mistake. Meanwhile, David's increasing financial success as a corporate attorney created an even wider gap between our lifestyles and standing within the family hierarchy. I once overheard Mother telling her bridge club friends that I was taking time off to find myself rather than admitting I was a single working mother, as if my reality was too embarrassing to acknowledge in her social circles. The constant erasure and revision of my life story to fit her preferred narrative became another form of rejection. When David met Lauren at his law firm, their relationship progressed with the perfect trajectory my parents had always envisioned. Both came from similar socioeconomic backgrounds. Both had prestigious careers, and both understood the social performance that mattered so much to my mother. Their elaborate engagement party at the country club featured a string quartet and champagne fountain. I received an invitation without a +1, meaning Sophia was explicitly excluded, despite being their only niece. David and Lauren purchased a $1 million home in Beacon Hill, one of Boston's most exclusive neighborhoods. My parents spoke endlessly about the property's historical features and prestigious address to anyone who would listen. They eagerly invested in David's investment fund when he branched into finance, while simultaneously ignoring my requests for help with Sophia's school expenses when I faced a temporary layoff. Their destination wedding in Napa Valley was another reminder of our family's unequal dynamics. While I was invited as a courtesy, it was made clear that bringing Sophia was not an option. "It's an adults-only wedding," Mother explained. Though I noticed David's colleagues' children serving as flower girl and ring bearer, I left Sophia with Mrs. Jenkins for the weekend, spending money we couldn't really spare to maintain the illusion of family harmony. As David and Lauren rose through Boston's social circles, my parents' pride was boundless. Their son had fulfilled every expectation married appropriately and provided them social currency through his connections and achievements. Meanwhile, my occasional family dinner appearances became less frequent as the pattern of exclusion became increasingly blatant and painful to endure. Despite our challenges, or perhaps because of them, Sophia grew into a remarkable young woman. From her earliest school days, she demonstrated exceptional academic abilities that surprised even her teachers. Her reading comprehension tested several grades above her age level, and her natural curiosity led her to devour books on diverse subjects from astronomy to world history. What truly distinguished Sophia, however, was her early interest in justice and fairness. While other children her age were reading fantasy stories, she gravitated toward books about historical figures who overcame adversity and fought for equality. By 12, she had developed perceptive observations about our family dynamics that both impressed and concerned me. "Mom, why don't Grandma and Grandpa have pictures of us in their house like they have of Uncle David?" she asked after one holiday visit. These innocent but insightful questions broke my heart. I tried to protect her from the full truth while encouraging her to maintain relationships with her grandparents, walking a delicate line between honesty and preservation of family bonds. But as she grew older, her emotional intelligence made such simplified explanations increasingly inadequate. For a seventh-grade writing competition, Sophia wrote an essay titled "The Family We Choose" that won first place in her school district. Reading her perspective on how families extend beyond blood relations to include those who consistently show up with love and support brought tears to my eyes. Her wisdom and emotional maturity far exceeded her years. As Sophia entered high school, she joined the debate team and excelled in mock trial competitions. Her debate coach, Mr. Lawson, became an important male figure in her life, providing the kind of mentorship and encouragement my father never offered. Under his guidance, she developed confidence in public speaking and logical argumentation that would later prove invaluable. It was during this period of Sophia's blossoming that I received a casual call from my Aunt Elizabeth mentioning David and Lauren were expecting their first child. "I assumed you already knew," she said awkwardly when met with my surprised silence. No direct announcement had come from my brother or parents, though we had spoken on the phone barely 2 weeks earlier. My emotions were complicated. Genuine happiness for my brother mingled with the familiar sting of exclusion from significant family news. I sent David a congratulatory text that evening, receiving a brief, "Thanks, sis," in response without further details or invitation to share in their joy. Despite our strained relationship, I found myself shopping for baby gifts the following weekend. Sophia was ecstatic about having a cousin making plans to be involved in the baby's life, regardless of past family dynamics. "This is a chance for a fresh start, Mom," she said with characteristic optimism. "Babies bring people together." Scrolling through social media a few days later, I discovered Lauren had posted professional maternity photos tagged with both sets of grandparents and various friends, but not me. During a brief, awkward call with my mother about an unrelated matter, I learned almost accidentally that they were expecting a boy, David Jr. Their calling him mother mentioned offhandedly, as if I should already possess this information. Despite these continued slights, I maintained a genuine desire to be a supportive aunt to my nephew. In the evenings after work, I began knitting a baby blanket in soft blue yarn, pouring love into every stitch, despite uncertainty about whether it would be appreciated or acknowledged. The definitive proof of our continued exclusion came when Sophia discovered an Instagram post from my cousin's daughter showing elaborate preparations for a welcome baby boy celebration planned at my parents' home. The photo displayed blue and silver decorations being arranged in my mother's immaculate living room, with a caption mentioning the whole family gathering to celebrate David and Lauren's son. For several days, I checked the mail, hopefully telling myself the invitation was simply delayed, or perhaps sent to my old address by mistake. When nothing arrived, I called my mother under the pretense of returning a casserole dish she had left at our apartment months earlier. Her vague answers about a small family gathering made it clear no invitation was forthcoming. I texted David directly. "Heard about the baby shower next weekend. Should we bring anything special?" His response came 3 days later. "It's actually just a small thing Lauren's family is handling. No need to worry about it." The excuse was transparently false. I had seen my extended family members confirming attendance in the Instagram comments. The pattern of deliberate exclusion was impossible to ignore, but this instance felt particularly cruel. This wasn't a random dinner or adult social function, but the celebration of a new family member who would be my nephew and Sophia's cousin. Our exclusion from this event sent a clear message about our place in the family hierarchy. That night, I cried alone in the bathroom with the shower running to mask the sound from Sophia. I had worked so hard to build a good life for us despite the challenges, yet my family continued to treat us as embarrassments rather than members worthy of inclusion and respect. The familiar pain of rejection felt as fresh as it had during childhood, a wound repeatedly reopened. The following morning, Sophia confronted me at breakfast, my puffy eyes having betrayed my nighttime breakdown. She placed a crumpled Instagram print out on the table between us. "I found this in the trash." "Mom, you've been crying about the party, haven't you?" Her directness made denial impossible. We had a heart-to-heart conversation about the long pattern of family exclusion and hurt. Instead of the anger I might have expected, Sophia displayed remarkable maturity. "We deserve better than this," she said firmly. "And if they won't give us the respect we deserve, we need to stand up for ourselves." My initial instinct was to ignore the party entirely, protecting our emotional health by avoiding another rejection. That night, I tossed and turned, replaying years of similar exclusions and wondering if continued acceptance of this treatment only perpetuated the pattern. By morning, a new resolve had formed. Continuing to accept invisibility within my own family sent Sophia the wrong message about her worth and mine. "Let's go anyway," I told Sophia over breakfast. "Well, bring a nice gift for the baby, make a brief appearance, and leave with our dignity intact. Whether they welcome us or not, we'll know we tried to be part of this family milestone." Sophia's smile was both proud and slightly mysterious. "I think that's the right decision, Mom. It's time they learned we won't be erased anymore." The following Saturday, Sophia and I visited an upscale baby boutique in downtown Boston. Despite our tight budget, I wanted to select something special for my nephew. We chose a soft stuffed elephant. Remembering that David had treasured a similar toy throughout his childhood, I added several classic children's books I had read to Sophia as a baby, particularly Goodnight Moon and the Velveteen Rabbit, with their timeless messages about love. The most meaningful gift was the handmade blanket I'd been knitting for weeks, each stitch representing hope for a relationship with my nephew, despite the complicated family dynamics. Sophia insisted on contributing her allowance money toward a sterling silver frame containing a vintage photograph of David and me as children, standing with our arms around each other at Cape Cod. It was a subtle reminder of the close sibling relationship we once shared. We spent extra time wrapping everything beautifully in blue paper with silver ribbon, far more elegant than our usual gift presentation. I wrote a heartfelt card expressing love for my nephew and hopes for being part of his life, carefully avoiding any mention of the party exclusion or past hurts. The gift represented our high road approach, extending love regardless of how it might be received. In the days leading up to the party, I mentally rehearsed potential scenarios and appropriate responses. If Mother attempted to turn us away at the door, I would remain calm and simply ask to leave our gift. If David seemed uncomfortable with our presence, I would congratulate him briefly and depart without creating a scene. My goal was dignity, regardless of reception, showing Sophia that self-respect doesn't depend on others' validation. The outfit selection for the event received unusual attention. I chose a navy blue dress that was professional and flattering without appearing too formal, paired with modest heels and simple jewelry. I wanted to look confident and put together, not giving anyone reason to criticize my appearance as Mother often did. Throughout these preparations, I noticed Sophia engaging in increasingly secretive behavior. Several times I overheard partial phone conversations that abruptly ended when I entered the room. Once I distinctly heard her mention documentation and legal rights before her voice dropped to a whisper. When questioned directly, she deflected with, "Just trust me, Mom, I'm handling something important." The evening before the party, while doing laundry, I discovered a business card from Carter and Hayes law firm tucked into Sophia's jacket pocket. My confusion deepened, but when confronted, Sophia simply smiled reassuringly. "I'm making sure we're prepared for tomorrow. That's all you need to know right now." On the morning of the party, Sophia emerged from her bedroom, dressed surprisingly formally for a 15-year-old. Her tailored black pants and crisp white blouse looked more appropriate for a business meeting than a family gathering. Before I could question her appearance, she asked if we could make a quick stop downtown before heading to my parents' house. "There's something I need to pick up first," she explained with uncharacteristic seriousness. "It's important, Mom." We departed earlier than necessary, allowing time for Sophia's mysterious errand. When we arrived at an imposing office building in the financial district, Sophia asked me to wait in the car. "This will only take a few minutes," she promised, disappearing through the revolving glass doors with confident purpose. 15 minutes later, she returned carrying a manila envelope, which she carefully placed in her tote bag. When I asked directly what was inside, she patted my hand. "Insurance policy, just in case. Don't worry about it unless we need it." As we drove toward my parents' suburban neighborhood, anxiety knotted my stomach tighter with each passing mile. The familiar streets brought floods of childhood memories, not all of them pleasant. When we turned onto Maple Avenue, the row of cars parked along the street confirmed our suspicions about the small family gathering narrative. I recognized vehicles belonging to aunts, uncles, and family friends, suggesting a substantial celebration was indeed underway. Blue and white balloons tied to the mailbox and a welcome baby boy sign on the front door removed any remaining doubt about the nature of the event we'd been deliberately excluded from. I parked across the street, hands trembling slightly as I turned off the ignition. Maybe we shouldn't do this, I whispered, momentary doubt overwhelming my earlier resolve. Sophia reached over and squeezed my hand firmly. We absolutely should, she replied with surprising conviction. We're family too, Mom, and it's time they remembered that. With the carefully wrapped gift in hand, we approached the front door of my childhood home. The sounds of laughter and conversation floated through the open windows, along with soft classical music my mother always insisted was appropriate for civilized gatherings. My finger hovered over the doorbell momentarily before pressing it, the familiar chime seeming unusually loud in my anxious state. After what felt like an eternity, the door swung open to reveal my mother's perfectly composed hostess smile, which froze and then collapsed into shock upon recognizing us. She was wearing a new pale blue dress I'd never seen before, clearly purchased for the occasion, with her signature pearl necklace and earrings. Emily, what are you doing here? The displeasure in her tone was unmistakable, making clear we were unwelcome intruders rather than family members. Hello, Mother, I replied, struggling to keep my voice steady. We brought a gift for the baby. We won't stay long if it's inconvenient. Her body physically blocked the doorway as her expression hardened. You shouldn't be here, she stated flatly, lowering her voice to avoid being overheard by guests inside. This is a private family gathering. Beyond her shoulder, I caught a glimpse of the living room, transformed with blue streamers, balloon arrangements, and a banner reading, "Welcome, David Jr." The contrast between the celebratory atmosphere inside and the cold rejection at the threshold couldn't have been starker. My father appeared behind her, his expression conflicted but silent as usual when Mother took a firm position. Several relatives noticed the commotion at the door, conversations quieting as attention shifted toward the entrance. I spotted Lauren's parents moving closer, curiosity evident in their expressions. Then David emerged from the living room, champagne flute in hand, momentarily freezing when our eyes met. Something unreadable flickered across his face before he quickly looked away, pretending to be engaged in conversation with a nearby uncle. The humiliation burned in my chest as we stood there awkwardly clutching our gift while being denied entry. Despite my preparation for this possibility, the reality of being treated like unwanted solicitors at my childhood home struck deeper than anticipated. I was about to apologize and retreat when I felt Sophia straighten beside me, her posture shifting from uncertain teenager to something altogether more formidable. Before anyone could speak again, Mother's eyes widened as she looked past us to someone approaching the porch behind us. "Who's that?" I heard someone whisper from inside. "What's happening at the door?" Sophia's confident voice cut through the tension with surprising authority. "Grandma, there's someone I'd like you to introduce you to." I turned to see a distinguished man in his 50s approaching the steps. His tailored suit and leather briefcase screamed professional, his expression pleasantly neutral, but somehow authoritative. Mother's face drained of color as Sophia made introductions. "This is Mr. Reynolds from Carter and Hayes Law Firm. He specializes in family estate law," Sophia explained with astonishing poise. "He's been helping me understand some interesting documents I discovered recently." My father stepped forward now, confusion overriding his usual passivity. "What's the meaning of this? Why would you bring a lawyer to a family gathering?" Sophia smiled politely. "I thought it would be more convenient to discuss the discrepancies I found in great-grandfather Thompson's will and trust documents while everyone was already gathered, especially since these matters affect the whole family." The word discrepancies hung in the air like a thundercloud, Mother attempted to close the door, but Mr. Reynolds smoothly placed his foot in the doorway with practiced professionalism. "Perhaps we could discuss this inside rather than on your front porch, Mrs. Thompson. I believe privacy would benefit everyone involved." By now, relatives were openly crowding the hallway, curiosity overwhelming celebration. David pushed through the gathering crowd demanding an explanation, while Lauren appeared at the top of the stairs, newborn son cradled protectively against her shoulder. After a tense, whispered conference between my parents, my father reluctantly gestured us inside. "Let's take this to the study," he suggested grimly. No need to disrupt the entire party. We entered the house in uncomfortable procession, passing through the elaborately decorated living room, where blue and silver balloons created a surreal backdrop for our family confrontation. Some relatives discreetly moved toward other rooms, while others lingered pretending to focus on refreshments while straining to overhear developments. Lauren's parents suggested they take the baby upstairs away from the tension, while a confrontation circle formed in my father's wood-paneled study. Emily, Sophia, and Mr. Reynolds on one side, mother, father, and David on the other. The lawyer opened his briefcase with methodical calm, removing several documents bearing the letterhead of Post Hospital, where my grandfather had served as chief of surgery for 3 decades. While researching a school project on family history, Sophia discovered mention of a trust established by Dr. Henry Thompson for all his grandchildren. Mr. Reynolds began professionally. Upon further investigation, we found documentation of significant assets intended for equal distribution among all descendants. He placed the first document on my father's desk, pointing to specific paragraphs. "As you can see, Catherine Thompson was named executor with explicit instructions that all grandchildren receive equal educational funding and inheritance portions." David leaned forward, examining the papers with his attorney's eye. "Mom, is this true? Did grandfather establish trusts for all of us?" Mother's defensive posture intensified. "Those old documents are irrelevant. I made decisions that were best for the family as a whole." Some people, she glanced pointedly at me, made choices that removed them from consideration. "Removed from consideration," I echoed, the familiar pain of rejection freshly ignited. "What does that mean exactly?" Mother's justification came in a burst of long-repressed judgment. "Family resources should support real family members, not mistakes. Your choices had consequences, Emily." The word mistakes hung in the air between us. My daughter, my beautiful, brilliant Sophia, labeled a mistake by her own grandmother. The pain of hearing her described this way surpassed any hurt I had personally endured. David's expression shifted from confusion to growing anger as he examined more documents Mr. Reynolds provided. "These show quarterly distributions from grandfather's trust to my college and law school accounts, but nothing to Emily after her sophomore year, and nothing at all for Sophia's education, despite specific provisions for great-grandchildren." Lauren had entered silently, standing in the doorway, cradling the baby protectively, while exchanging uncomfortable glances with her parents. She appeared genuinely shocked by the unfolding revelations. "You had no right to make those determinations," David continued, addressing our mother with increasing frustration. "This wasn't your money to withhold." Mother's face flushed with indignation. "I protected the family legacy. What would father have thought watching his hard-earned money support an out-of-wedlock child? I made appropriate decisions based on circumstances." Mr. Reynolds calmly presented a timeline of financial irregularities spanning 15 years. The trust specifically included provisions for all descendants regardless of circumstance. Furthermore, there appears to be documentation that funds earmarked for Sophia's future education were redirected to accounts benefiting only David's household. Sophia stepped forward, addressing my mother directly for the first time. "I've been tracking the pattern of exclusion for years. Grandma, the missed birthday invitations, the lost Christmas gifts, the separate tables at family gatherings, but taking money specifically left for my education that goes beyond emotional rejection to something legally actionable. The tension in the room reached breaking point as voices raised and accusations flew. My father, appearing genuinely surprised at the extent of my mother's actions, sank into his leather chair with his head in his hands. Party guests in adjoining rooms maintained an awkward silence, pretending not to hear while undoubtedly absorbing every word. As the confrontation escalated, I experienced an overwhelming mix of vindication and sorrow. This was never how I wanted family reconciliation to occur, through legal threats and exposed deceptions. Yet the truth emerging after years of gaslighting and exclusion provided a strange, painful relief. The emotional dam I had carefully maintained for years finally broke under the weight of revealed truths. I never wanted money, I said, tears flowing freely after so long holding them back. I wanted family. I wanted my daughter to know her grandparents and uncle. I wanted to be treated like I mattered. I recounted years of exclusion, subtle slights, and outright rejection, while David listened with growing discomfort. Do you know what it feels like to hear about your brother's engagement through Facebook? Or to be seated with distant relatives at family gatherings, as if you're barely connected, to watch your child open dollar store gifts while her cousins receive expensive electronics? Mother attempted to justify her actions through her familiar lens of social propriety. Your choices embarrassed this family, Emily. Getting pregnant without being married, raising a child alone when adoption was an option. What were people supposed to think enough, Patricia? My father's voice cut through the tension with unusual authority. This has gone too far. He turned to Mr. Reynolds with resignation. I was told the trust was distributed years ago according to my father's wishes. I had no idea about these manipulations. David stood silently for a moment before deliberately moving to stand beside me. A symbolic shift of allegiance that spoke volumes. Mother's attempts to regain control through emotional manipulation fell flat as the evidence mounted against her version of events. The confrontation reached its climax when Lauren descended the stairs with the baby and purposefully approached me. "Would you like to meet your nephew?" she offered quietly. The simple question serving as an olive branch amid the chaos. For the first time, I looked down at my nephew's tiny face. His features so clearly resembled David's baby pictures, with the same distinctive Thompson nose and chin. "He has your eyes?" I whispered to my brother, momentarily breaking the tension. Mother protested from across the room, but Lauren stood her ground with surprising firmness. Holding this innocent baby amid family turmoil created a perfect counterpoint to the ugliness of exposed secrets. This child represented a future that could potentially break free from toxic patterns if we chose a different path forward. The family alignment began visibly shifting as David confronted our parents directly. "How could you do this to my sister, to my niece? Did you think I would approve of this if I had known my father admitted awareness of some, but not all, of the deception?" His complicity through passive acceptance becoming increasingly clear. Extended family members who had been pretending not to listen now entered the room, fully taking sides in the unfolding drama. Aunt Elizabeth revealed other instances of my mother's manipulations over the years, while Uncle Pete confirmed my grandfather's intentions had always included all descendants equally. Cousins I'd barely spoken to in years expressed shock at how Sophia and I had been treated, having believed my distance was by choice rather than exclusion. Lauren's parents questioned the integrity of their in-laws after these revelations, their protective concern for their grandson evident in exchanged glances. Mother found herself increasingly isolated as family support eroded, her carefully constructed narrative crumbling under scrutiny. David approached me with genuine regret visible in his expression. "I'm sorry, Emily. I should have seen what was happening. I was so wrapped up in my own life. I never questioned why you weren't around more. I just assumed you were busy or uninterested." Our long overdue sibling reconciliation brought tears to both our eyes as years of misunderstanding began to clear. My father approached Sophia hesitantly, making an awkward but sincere attempt to connect with the granddaughter he had kept at arm's length for 15 years. While Mother retreated physically to a corner of the room, refusing to acknowledge wrongdoing, Mr. Reynolds presented options for resolving the financial situation. David immediately offered to establish a new educational trust for Sophia from his personal funds, not waiting for the legal resolution of the original trust issues. "I want regular family gatherings going forward," David stated firmly, with everyone included. "This division ends today." A clear message was delivered to my mother. Accept the new family dynamic, or find herself excluded from important moments in her son's and grandson's lives. The choice she had forced on others for years was now before her. My baby nephew was carefully passed to Sophia, her first time holding her cousin. The emotional weight of the moment was visible, as she whispered promises to the infant about being the best cousin possible. The attorney packed his documents, having achieved the intended purpose, without needing to pursue legal action. David insisted we stay for the remainder of the party, properly introducing us to extended family members and Lauren's relatives. Mother maintained her distance but refrained from creating additional conflict, recognizing her position had fundamentally changed. As we integrated into the celebration awkwardly at first, but with increasing comfort, I finally opened our gift. David recognized the stuffed elephant immediately, his expression softening at the childhood memory it evoked. Lauren admired the handmade blanket, appreciating the hours of work it represented. Sophia bonded with baby David Jr., taking photos and getting acquainted with the newest family member. Lauren shared pregnancy photos and birth stories previously withheld, creating the beginning of a genuine connection between us. My father and I had our first real conversation in years, halting and occasionally uncomfortable, but fundamentally sincere. "I should have stood up for you," he admitted quietly. "I chose peace with your mother over doing what was right. I can't change that, but I'd like to do better moving forward." Before departing, we exchanged phone numbers with cousins long kept at distance, and David showed me photos of the nursery on his phone, inviting us to visit their home. The following weekend, a family text thread was created that included me for the first time, a small but significant gesture of inclusion. The drive home was filled with processing the emotional whirlwind we'd experienced. Despite the confrontational nature of our family reunion, the outcome held more promise than I had dared hope for. Sophia sat quietly beside me, a subtle pride in her expression that spoke volumes about her role in changing our family dynamic forever. The days following our confrontation left me emotionally exhausted. Sophia and I slept late the next morning, both needing recovery time from the intensity of the experience. Over pancakes, her favorite comfort food, we had a long conversation about courage and consequences. "I'm still processing what you did," I told her honestly. "Part of me wishes you had told me about your plan beforehand, but another part understands why you didn't." Sophia's response reflected maturity beyond her years. "You would have talked me out of it, Mom. You've been protecting me from the truth about them my whole life. It was my turn to protect you." While I had mixed feelings about her methods, I couldn't deny the results. The first step toward healing came unexpectedly the following afternoon, when David texted several photos of the baby with a simple message. "DJ wants to get to know his aunt and cousin better. Dinner this weekend." That week, I scheduled my first therapy session in years. Recognizing the need for professional help. Processing the family reconciliation, my therapist suggested journaling as we worked through the complex emotions of forgiveness without forgetting past wrongs. Lauren and I met for coffee midweek, beginning what would become a genuine friendship. "I suspected something wasn't right with how they talked about you," she admitted. But David seemed to accept it as normal, and I didn't feel it was my place to push. She explained that she had always wanted to know me better, but followed David's lead regarding family relationships. My father invited me to lunch the following Tuesday, offering a private apology for years of passivity. I convinced myself I was keeping peace, But really, I was just avoiding conflict, he explained, genuine remorse evident in his voice. I failed you as a father. While my mother's progress came more slowly and reluctantly, even she began taking small steps toward acknowledgement. She called to ask about Sophia's school performance, a previously unprecedented interest in her granddaughter's life. The conversation was stilted but represented movement in the right direction. When we visited David and Lauren's home that weekend, I held my nephew while sharing stories of our childhood that David had nearly forgotten. Remember when you were about 7 and decided to paint Dad's car with mud to make it prettier? The shared laughter over old memories began bridging the gap years of estrangement had created. Lauren proved an unexpected ally, ensuring Sophia and I were properly included in family plans moving forward. She created a family group chat specifically for sharing baby updates and coordinating visits, making our inclusion official and expected, rather than optional. We established a tradition of Sunday dinners at a neutral restaurant, eliminating the power dynamic of gathering at my parents' home. These meals were occasionally awkward but increasingly comfortable. As weeks passed, my father made special effort to connect with Sophia, asking about her academic interests and debate competitions. As I reconnected with extended family members, I discovered shared interests with cousins I had previously seen as strangers. My mother's gradual softening became evident through her interactions with Sophia. While still reserved, she began asking questions about her granddaughter's future plans and actually listening to the answers. 3 months after our confrontation, we celebrated the baby's christening, where I was surprised and touched to be named godmother. Standing at the baptismal font with my nephew in my arms, surrounded by family members who now acknowledged our legitimate place in the circle, represented healing I had once thought impossible. During a quiet moment at my parents' home after the ceremony, I discovered a box of photographs in the guest room closet. Inside were dozens of pictures of Sophia from birth through early childhood. Images I had sent to my parents over the years that had never been displayed, but had been carefully preserved. This silent acknowledgement that they had never truly forgotten us despite appearances brought unexpected tears. The most significant growth happened within me. Through therapy and reflection, I recognized my own role in allowing poor treatment to continue. By accepting invisibility to keep peace, I had participated in my own exclusion. Setting healthy boundaries wasn't selfish but necessary for both Sophia's well-being and mine. I watched Sophia's confidence flourish after standing up for justice. Her already strong academic performance improved further, and she began mentoring younger students in debate, passing on the lessons she had learned about advocating for oneself with grace and evidence. "You know what I've realized, Mom," she said one evening as we walked home from dinner with David and Lauren. "Healing doesn't have to be perfect to be valuable. Some scars will always remain, but they don't have to define us anymore." As our first Christmas with the new family dynamic approached, I felt nervous but hopeful. The holiday had previously highlighted our outsider status through seating arrangements and gift disparities. This year, David insisted on hosting at his home, creating neutral territory for all of us. Watching Sophia help her baby cousin open his Christmas gift, I reflected on the journey of the past year. The relationship with my family wasn't perfect, but it was real. Now, with honest acknowledgement of past hurts rather than polite fiction. My mother's effort to connect with Sophia, though sometimes awkward, represented growth I once thought impossible. Looking around the room at our imperfect healing family, I recognize that standing up for yourself doesn't necessarily mean losing relationships. Sometimes it means creating the possibility for authentic connection where only superficial contact existed before. The greatest lesson came from Sophia, whose courage to confront injustice had ultimately brought healing rather than further division. She had taught me that love sometimes requires difficult truths alongside compassion. As we enter this new chapter of family relationships, I'm grateful for second chances and the wisdom gained through adversity. If you've experienced family estrangement or reconciliation, I'd love to hear your story in the comments. Have you ever had to stand up to family for what's right? How did it change your relationships? Like this video if you believe in the power of honest conversations to heal old wounds. Subscribe for more real-life stories and share with someone who might need encouragement to advocate for themselves within their family. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, it's never too late to redefine what family means to you.